Hi, I am Sabrina, the president of the Five Spheres of Fit, and I'm here with Noel, the founder of the Five Spheres of Fit. The Five Spheres is a lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. The five spheres are the physical, the mental, the financial, the social, and the educational spheres. Today, we want to talk about modeling behaviors. And Noel, I love, usually you come up with the topics, and this was a topic you came up with. And I was like, okay, tell me more, tell me more. We have an impressionable young girl going into middle school. So this is a very critical time when it comes to modeling behavior. So, why this topic?
So, Sabrina, I was thinking a lot lately. I think the one thing that came to mind recently was that, as many of you know, we have a new presidential candidate on the Democrat side, Vice President Kamala Harris. And I think I was sort of stirred, if you will, when I was reading about some of the feedback from the other side of the aisle about her running and the things that were being said. And it sort of reminded me of all of the considerations that we were learning about as our, Naima's getting a little bit older, and some of the challenges that she will have with social media and how things get portrayed. And one of the tools and resources that I had learned long ago was the importance of following model behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And as parents to Naima, I always felt that, we have such a critical role of needing to model behaviors so that she can progress in a very positive direction and get the types of messages that we want to get. So that's essentially modeling behavior from my perspective, what I'm thinking about. The reason it's so important, Sabrina, is there's so many things that come from that model behavior for our children, and it starts with just basic self-esteem, confidence, their ability to identify misinformation, their ability to be consistent, their ability to appreciate and be empathetic about situations that they're seeing on social media. So that's why it's important, and certainly the importance of modeling appropriate behavior.
Give me an example. And, we're going to integrate now the five spheres to modeling behavior. So let's, talk about something in the physical sphere.
Sure. So when I think about an example, because we have an 11-year-old daughter, I think immediately to social media and the impact that it's having on young girls. And if anyone, I know probably a lot of the people watching out here know that the impact is very real and very sobering. And that is that a lot of young girls are seeing these images on social media, seeing these behaviors on social media, and not really knowing what to make sense of them, or not knowing how to make sense of them, but thinking that this is the model of behavior.
Mm-hmm,
this is what they should look like, act like, talk like, be like. And the danger in that is because there's no filter there. And so as parents, I feel so strongly about always trying to figure out, what is Naima looking at, and how can I get ahead of it, knowing what's already out there.
Right.
I have a social media account and on a couple different platforms, and I see a lot of different things. And I, as an adult, educated adult, can understand sort of what's happening and filter out kind of like the bull, if you will. But her young mind is still impressionable, and maybe she's still trying to find herself. And as she moves in, obviously, to adolescence, Sabrina, that it's something that really concerns me. So from the physical sphere, looking at, how does she view herself? How does she view her value to the world? Right. And that obviously is going to
So give me an example what a parent needs to do.
So from a standpoint of modeling behavior, if
say a young boy,
Yep.
or say a father to a daughter, model the behavior. She's seeing all these things. She's seeing, girls in bikinis, AI, women. What would you do as the parent to show her?
Right. So the beautiful thing about this, Sabrina, is it's not like what I would do, is what I am doing. And Naima and I talk all the time, and we've talked in previous podcasts about the importance of communication. And so because I know she is on some of these platforms, she doesn't have her own account, with the exception to like TikTok, but I think you get to oversee all of that. But letting her know that things that are on there are not always real. And in fact, a lot of them are just sort of short plays of what someone thinks
Yeah,
is cool or
right.
funny or happening. Cool music is usually tied into it to kind of bring you in. But the reality is sometimes you're not watching that. And I know I wanted to do another podcast for the adults to talk about some of the things that we're seeing. I mean, there's so many social influencers out there that they're not really living that life. They're pretending to do that. So
So
we
is
talked
that
to
what you're
Naima.
talking about, like communication?
Yeah, talking to Naima. Sometimes I'll be on my social media and I'll show her a picture of someone or something. I say, Naima, do you know that's not even real? It's an AI generated photo. Or this scenario where someone's doing something. I was like, it's not. There's not a reality here. And also point out some of the dangers. Talk to her about what she's actually seeing. We don't want to get her so numb and looking at things like without having a sense of empathy and sympathy, especially when she sees someone in pain.
So even when it comes to the physical sphere, we talked to her about, don't eat all the sugar and it's not to look a certain way. We've never said that. It's because you want to be healthy. Sugar causes inflammation and, when you're sick, that's the last thing you want, or sugar can cause inflammation, which then causes you to get sick easily.
And we model that behavior by eating healthy at home. That's a model behavior.
And we don't talk about to look a certain way, to be a certain size. That's one thing we don't do in this house.
We go out to the garage and we work out on a regular basis.
Or if you go to a gym, your kids are going to model that behavior. It may not be now, but it's later, right? They're seeing you do that. Give me an example let's go to the social sphere.
Sure.
So I don't know if you know this, but I saw Naima writing notes in her phone the other day, and it's funny, it's like categorized in the 5 spheres. We just gave her a new 5 spheres journal. We'll put the link here. But I told her exactly what you're doing on your phone is what you would do in the journal. And under the social sphere, she said, stay away from toxic people. So do you think she got that from us? Do you think she got it from friends?
I do think it comes from us, but it can be generated from elsewhere. She's watching some really good shows that are bringing these topics to light. When we were growing up, we had certain shows when we were middle schoolers and high schoolers that didn't necessarily help us deal with the world that was coming at us. But then again, we didn't have social media. Now, Naima not only has social media, but she also has different television programming. And I think programming is actually doing a much better job helping her understand where there are pitfalls. Like the bully in school is not acceptable. To simply look at someone for their aesthetic look and value them or not is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And those things are tools that she's learning. We're obviously reinforcing, and in many instances, Serena, like you said, we're bringing them up at home. And I think that's important. We have this opportunity. It's 2-on-1, so we can communicate with them.
Yeah. Give me an example in the mental sphere where, it's such a big topic that we, people are finally discussing, something that parents can model behavior. Give an example.
Right. So as I've said in previous podcasts, and I know that Sabrina has mentioned on the different podcast forums that she's in, we both follow a decompression strategy. We focus on our own mental health, and Naima does see that. There are times when I, as you know, will dial out from something. I will do a 15-minute, what I call a snoozer, or I will remove myself from a social situation just to kind of allow myself to relax and not get overwhelmed. We've talked to Naima in many instances about recognizing when she's not comfortable. And so it might not be just a physical uncomfortability, but rather a mental, like it's too much. Like there's too much loud noise, lights, or people are saying things that she doesn't want to hear, and removing herself from those environments. I think those are things that, modeling those ourselves is allowing Naima to see like, oh, it's okay. Daddy walks away from conversations that are, maybe
negative.
Gossiping, negative. And you say that all the time to us, like, hey, you guys are judging, or hey, that's a negative conversation.
Right.
Is that something you want to do? So it's model behavior.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
You brought up Kamala Harris. And I want to say, whether you are, voting Democratic or Republican in this election, this is for everybody, right? It's not okay to talk down to a woman or anyone, but you brought up Kamala Harris, so
Sure.
I just want to
You're using the
acknowledge
example
that.
of the current.
So I did feel like there's a woman who is most likely going to be the Democratic nominee,
Mhm.
and the moment that she becomes that person,
Mhm.
right? There is talk that she slept her way up to the top.
Mhm.
Okay. That she continues to do that. She sleeps her way to the top. She's been called a slut. That she's not, what's the word? She's not
Qualified?
competent enough,
Okay.
qualified and competent enough to do the role. Right. What bothers me is that the adults that are saying this,
Mhm.
their children are listening.
Mhm.
So as soon as a woman comes into a place of, say, power, right? People think that they can discredit that,
Mhm.
and then their children are listening. And
Mhm.
that's what you're talking about, modeling behavior. So when
Mhm.
I asked you for examples in the spheres, we talked about positive examples. Now, this is a negative example.
Yeah, I think that, and this is kind of a slippery slope because obviously, we always want to welcome all points of view. I think to your point, the thing that is so bothersome for most educated people who look at anything is to see someone be denigrated because of who they are as a human being, a woman, a black man, a black woman, an Asian, a white woman, a white man, any identity that you hold is being utilized to denigrate. And too often times, and I think the evidence that is there to support that, we're seeing that women, particularly those in higher power positions like Kamala Harris, who is already the elected vice president of the United States, being looked at not through her policies or what it is she's saying, but how she looks when she's saying it. Is her skin tone of a certain appropriateness for someone who's watching? Are her clothes appropriate? The way she speaks, the people that she knows. To me, it reeks of the very essence of all the isms that we want to teach out of every generation, but certainly this young generation. And it's bothersome because now not only do, culturally we look similar, but I have loved ones, yourself and I am included, who may look like this particular
Right,
person.
right.
And so it's painful to hear those things. And, there are some people who walk in our same shoes and many who don't. And I just would like the appreciation. I couldn't
But
care,
what,
and
no,
just
go
to
ahead,
finish
go
the
ahead.
point, I couldn't care less what someone's political identity is.
Right.
I will always judge based on how that person treats others and the policies that come into play, whether I agree or not. And that's it. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to
But that's
agree
my
with me.
point. People are talking negatively,
Mhm. That
not
model,
based on
that lack
that,
of.
not based on facts, data, or policy.
Mhm.
And that's what your children are hearing,
Sure. So that
right?
model behavior is not the type of behavior that you want modeled.
Exactly.
There's no consistency of it. There's no self-esteem building. You're teaching them what's called false confidence. It's built on a foundation of being a bully, saying things that are inappropriate, and not judging the content of someone's character, but rather the aesthetics of what they look like. And that's the danger of it. I've often found that social media contributes to that. Why is it, Sabrina, that if I said, name me a famous speech given by a woman, it's really difficult to figure that one out. But if I said by a man, you could like that figure one
Right.
out and name it right off the top of your head. Why is it that when powerful women speak, it's always about, oh, I wanted to see what she was wearing. Or when you watch shows, I want to see what she was wearing, but it's what the men are saying, but it's what the women are wearing when they're saying it. And that to me, raising a daughter is really, really difficult. So I am doing my best to try to model these behaviors of, I don't really care what someone looks like. Yes, we all make our judgments. We maybe make jokes and stuff like that. But if we're being sincere and serious when we're trying to actually educate our children, we want to teach them and model the types of behaviors that build confidence and self-esteem, and certainly the empathy and sympathy that Naima talks about with her teachers at school, and they try to push with the
So I have
kids.
an example. a child is bullying at school.
Mhm.
Okay. Parents go in to talk to the principal, and the parents are like, well, I don't understand.
Right.
Like, why? I don't know why they're doing this.
Right.
Maybe they're getting picked on. So are you saying that the parents need to look within and say, hey, is
Mhm.
it possible that they're modeling behavior? Am I doing this?
Uh,
Am I,
Absolutely.
talking rudely about people? Am I being rude to, my close knit group?
Right. If we're going to delve into a discipline that neither I nor you have professionally studied a little bit, I read voraciously about this stuff, but human psychology, it's well understood that people who are hurt others. Like that's how it works. And you can model behaviors as parents and communicate with your children who may be feeling that way, and to help them to come out of that. Now, unless they're a sociopath or a psychopath, which we know that there's some generation there that can happen, that takes everything off the board, the normal rules of how you would manage that situation, but recognizing what behaviors do you show? Are you watching violent programming?
Okay.
Are you the type of person who's like, well, just punch them in the face if they ever say anything to you? Like, do you reach for that before anything else? Now we come from a culture that celebrates, one individual in particular, Gandhi, who obviously changed the world using a nonviolent culture.
Right.
We learned about obviously Dr. Martin
But
Luther King.
ironically, I watch a lot of true crime.
Yeah, we do.
And now
Criminal
our
Minds,
daughter
SVU,
enjoys watching. She's like, "Ooh, is there a good murder show like Dateline on?"
But point being, like, we recognize that, we always say that, Naima, this is a show. It's fake. It's not real. And we make sure that there's not a misinformation.
She knows Dateline's real, by the way.
Yeah. Well, there's
so
Dateline's
we need to work on that one.
Yeah, Dateline's different. So
we are not perfect. we are using the advice that we give, especially, we use the 5 spheres daily. So, okay, this has been a great start to talking about modeling behavior, and I'd like to continue it on future episodes. So can you give me 5 or so goals of modeling behavior that people can do?
Right. So at the outset, like I said, I would focus on, because it's generally young people that we really want to model the behavior, although for other adults, it's really important too. But I think they go hand in hand, confidence and self-esteem. Sometimes it's hard to separate the two, but they are two different concepts, but you can sort of push them together.
Building their confidence?
Building their confidence and building their self-esteem by giving them a sense of groundedness and understanding what's happening. So when you model behavior, your children, your young minds can be looking at you and can recognize, well, that's the appropriate way in which to handle that. And I can be confident in knowing that that's the appropriate manner in which to go about it. I don't have to second guess. That consistency will also build confidence. Their self-esteem is just a reflection of all of that ability. Some of the other things would be the ability to, you regulating your emotions and the ways you respond to certain things. I know that with Kamala Harris now becoming a candidate for president, you have felt, as you have said, a very visceral response to having someone who, seemingly could be you running for the most important position in politics in the world.
Yeah.
And that is important to you. So modeling your behavior with your responses to the negativity and making sure that Naima recognizes that there's a way to handle it. There's a way to talk back to people who may be saying things that are negative.
And vice versa. If you're going to vote for the Republican Party nominee,
your responses to the other side.
Yes, keep that positive.
Learn how to win with grace.
Yes.
Learn how to lose with grace.
So let's start again. So we said build confidence.
Self-esteem and
build
confidence.
Self-esteem and confidence.
So I would also say
keep it consistent.
Consistency of the behaviors. I would also say your ability to regulate your emotions.
Regulate your emotions.
So that your kids can see you not kind of, doing this. Like that consistency of behavior and regulation is good.
It's a big one.
And then I would say the last couple of things would be like an empathy, sympathy, like your ability to model behavior is about being empathetic and sympathetic to situations that you see. So that when they're looking at the world, Sabrina, they're looking at it with an eye of, man, that's not happening to me, but gosh, that would be awful. Someone getting
Yeah.
a terrible disease, or losing someone in a traffic accident or something of that nature, not getting into a school, or, not passing a test, or some challenge that is germane to their life, like recognizing that, and you seeing from you, like, that's tough. Like, I wish I could give them a hug. You say that all the time, right? Man, we should send them flowers, stuff like that, Naima will grasp from us, and she'll put into play in her life in her own way.
Yeah.
Right. She's seen friends who've been sad, and we've seen this before. And she's drawn pictures for them and folded up and gives a note to them.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, mommy, they just look really sad. Or, yeah, daddy, I was really concerned about them. Their grandmother passed away. So I know we're on the right path, but we're going to keep getting stuff from left and right as she gets a little bit older, and, gets more independent. And that's the reality of life. But we want to model these behaviors now, focusing on those areas, so that she can navigate, as well as possible.
Yeah. The earlier, the better. It's more ingrained in them, right?
It's a challenge
before the hormones hit.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Anything else to add?
Just keep doing your best. I mean, these podcasts aren't us trying to preach. We're just offering tools and resources. We are constantly evolving, as the name of Five Spheres indicates. And so are you as parents, and anyone else out there who's watching. Like, we want you to take these and use these for whatever best inputs you can. And if they have a place for you, great. And if they don't, that's great. Maybe the next podcast. So,
yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yes,
have a great day.